my case, spending too much time on a film has not harmed me so far. And the second is you have to decide whether you enjoy the next week the film is going to be released or 10 days later, whatever. So I picked up two books and both are terrific. One was Ira Levin's Kiss Before Dying, which I wrote a script. I wanted to make it, and then I got to know that it was being made in Hindi already. Hi everyone.
You ready to drop some wisdom?
Don't scare me.
Speaking of scared, I really feel like I'm in a Sriram Raghavan film right now because this is a very high stakes, tense situation to try and do justice to your filmography and your brain in 45 minutes. But let's see what happens. So that's a sign. This session was positioned as the art of adaptations. And we are, of course, after this session, there's going to be a screening of Night Creatures, which is a film that was also an adaptation of the same French novel that you adapted Merry Christmas from. But before that, I really wanted to use this session to talk about a lot of the adaptations in your work. You know, you've adapted short films, books, of course, real life, of course, and just how these stories found you, sort of from inception to the journey to screen. But firstly, I wanted to talk about something we were talking about briefly outside, which is, you know, in a lot of the stories that you've found, you've really lived with these stories for a very long time before you made a film out of them. You know, if I'm not wrong, the French book that became Johnny Gaddar, you first came across after you came out of FTII. Andhadhun, you said that you first watched that short film that is based on back in 2012. I read an interview of you where you were talking about writing Ikkis back in 2018. So is there any downside in living with these stories for so long before they get made?
I mean, there's no downside really. Actually, it's the other way around. It just sort of bakes better, you know. So yeah, but they took time because they needed to take time. It is not that I was completely ready with it and I had to wait till it gets made. I was also evolving it just from a story to a screenplay to finally the film you see. There is a process in which so much improves because of time, but not all the time, of course.
That's what I was going to ask. So is more time always a good thing, or is there ever a risk to that?
In my case, spending too much time on a film has not harmed me so far.
And you said the shortest turnaround time, if I can use that, from when you discovered a story to make the film is Badlapur.
Yeah, Badlapur was the fastest where I came across the story and I began writing it, but we didn't have the rights for the particular story. So then the rights they refused, but I'd already finished a version of the script. Then I went there and my producer made them an offer they couldn't refuse, and then we got to make it.
The other thing I wanted to ask you just about the world of adaptations is one thing I really admire about all these films is they really feel very Indian. You know, you're really rooting them in characters and worlds we recognize, which is not always the case. We've all seen so many films which are basically these Hollywood templates or sort of films picked up from world cinema, which just feel like a Hollywood film made for Bollywood audiences. So, and that's never the case with you. So what is that journey like of picking up a French story but really adapting it here?
See, if I see a film, then maybe to adapt it is very difficult. I wouldn't even be interested because every film is an adventure. You know, so if somebody's already gone through the adventure, me doing the same route again makes no sense. So I prefer either a book or in Andhadhun's case, it was a short film. So I prefer so that it's from a different medium almost, so that I can do my own work. You know. And that's why probably it feels Indian because I have just taken the basic story, you know, the basic plot or whatever, or just a character or something like that. After that, you make it your own way. For example, Badlapur, the original story is actually, if you read it, it's like, you know, it's an exchange of letters between two people, which is the Varun Dhawan character and the Nawazuddin character writing letters to each other. One in his jail and the other one in his private jail. That is the format of the story. There's never outside the letters format, you know. So of course that was not the way I saw it as a film. So like that.
Did you enjoy adapting sort of the stories more, what you're describing, or versus a short film like Andhadhun, where the short film itself is just that crazy situation of a fake blind man witnessing a murder? Did you enjoy the short more? Because I imagine there's more space to do more with that, or is it?
No, actually, all these things happen very organically. Later on, talking about it now, it seems like a big plan, you know. at around 10:30 in the night, one day I was checking my inbox, and Hemant Rao, who's a filmmaker now, by now, that time in 2012, he had sent me a short film because we are just friends. We had met during one of these script writing seminars. So we got chatting, we became friends, and he used to send me some short film to watch. I'll send him something to read or watch, kind of thing. He sent me this, and I loved it so much. I called him immediately. I said, "Why don't we adapt this as a feature?" And
This is 2012, right?
no, this is 2012. Yeah, yeah. After Agent Vinod had not done well and all that, I was generally just sitting there, and then and at that point, in that 1 hour, I decided ki the man. If you, I don't know how many of you all have seen the short film on which Andhadhun was based.
Piano Tuner, it's on YouTube.
It's available on YouTube. So, but there's one situation there, and immediately I said, okay, this. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if that? 3 or 4 what ifs happen. Then it was a pretty smooth sailing till almost the midpoint of the movie. After that, we were stuck again. We didn't know where to go. And then Hemant got busy with his own film. I got busy with Badlapur, and then we got back to this later. But by then, Hemant was doing other things. I got my other team involved, and so on.
Are you good at switching between projects? Because even with the Ikkis, you said that you took a pause on that when made Merry Christmas, came back to it. So when you're going from one world to another, is it easy for you to switch? Because these are very, very different worlds in films, or
Well, I didn't see the switching because it was like, that was the only thing we could do. Because the keys, when we had planned it, that time we were getting ready and we were just finished the script. We got the approval from the ADGPI, and then COVID happened, so we couldn't shoot. Then after COVID got over, I felt the actors too old. I wanted to change Varun. So I had to look for another actor. So the whole process of things happening. In between, how long do I wait? And plus, Merry Christmas was a story I already had. So I said, let me make that first. And meanwhile, let's figure out how to do this. So
is the moral of the story to have multiple stories up in the air at all times?
Ideally, yeah.
Sriram has told me he's currently looking for more stories. So
yeah. I tell people that it's dangerous because sometimes I get my inbox flooded, but I'm still waiting for one terrific story.
Be kind, but pitch away. Just coming to Ek Hasinathi and how it all started for you. This, if I read about this correctly, was, Ram Gopal Verma was your producer. He reached out to you because he had a script written by Pooja Ladhasurti, who became one of your closest collaborators after that. So what was that journey like? Because this was a story that somebody else had presented to you. And did it excite you and it just went from there?
No, it was also a combination of excitement and desperation, maybe, because what happened is actually I was doing something else with Ramu, which eventually I didn't do it. Shimit made it, but it became Ab Tak Chappan. But it was basically a story of encounter cops. And in fact, at that time, that story was called Daya. And it was not a biopic of that guy, Daya Naik. It was not that. But the Daya, Mercy, and the encounter specialist sounded quite ironic, and we worked on it for quite some time. Then for some reason, Ramu felt that this is not the right time to do this. Let's push it by a couple of years. And at that point, you have the term, my face fell. So my face fell probably, and he saw it. He said, there's one more story, you just look at it. And then I took it. I went home in the Rick, and I said, whatever the story is, I'm going to do it. So I better like it. So I started reading it with the intention of liking it. And yeah, we found good things in it. Yeah.
You said that when it came to you, it was quite raw, and then you had to really find the film within it. Is that
right? Raw. By raw, I mean there was not. I mean, it was written more like a novella. It was a little novelistic in this approach, and it was not like a screenplay kind of a thing. So we had to. Then after a few months, we got it right.
And this was your first theatrical film. You're working with stars. I did want to ask you about that process of pitching to stars. I feel like that's something that's not talked about a lot. You worked with Saif. You worked with again later. What is that process like of trying to find a star, a leading sort of actor who is willing to sort of buy into your vision without sort of bending your vision to their will? Because every filmmaker has so many colorful stories about, when this goes wrong. So what has been your journey with that, and has it always been relatively easy for you?
Well, with Ek Hasinathi, what happened is, there was Saif and Urmila. And Urmila, of course, it was an auto-backed role for her. And Saif was a little unsure because he had just done Dil Chahta Hai, which he had just started getting a sense of when people like you, what happens, kind of a thing. Because he had not had many successes for a long time. In fact, I think Ek Hasinathi, if I remember right, was his 44th film. 44th. It was not a small amount, And he had not had many successes. And he was not sure whether, is this the right thing to do? But somehow we got along. We sort of liked the same films and liked the same kind of books and so on. So he trusted me, and of course there was this Ramu was there as the, if there's any, big chaos, then he's there to take care of it.
Do you want to tell us the biggest lessons you learned from Ramu as a producer?
Ramu as a producer, the one thing I sometimes feel like sharing is that when the film got over, the edit got over, na, so he took me and Pooja. Pooja was the original writer of the film. So I said, you take the credit because it is your. I would never have thought of the story and so on. So even though I contributed, I don't take any credit for it, kind of thing. Credit, but in the official sense of the word. So we finished the final cut, and Ramu final cut from our side. Then Ramu would see it and whatever, have some point of view. So he told me, you've made a good film. I'll give you 2 pieces of advice. I said, give. No. So he said, one is, you made a good film. Don't try to repeat it the next time. And the second is, you have to decide whether you enjoy. The next week the film is going to be released, or 10 days later, whatever. You have to decide whether you enjoyed the up to this point, or you're waiting to enjoy the rest of it. Where's your enjoyment, before the making the film or the fruits of it? So that I had to choose. So I've chosen well.
I think we all know which part you enjoy more. And then just coming to Johnny Gaddar, I watched it recently. It is still such a fresh, fun, immensely cool film. It really is. It's such playful, clever plotting. This was based on a story, another French book that you found when you were working at ISRO. Is that right?
Yeah. So I mean, this is that time when there was this, all copyright means right to copy, kind of that old joke they say in our thing. Na? But this is a time when there was no way of accessing or anything, and so I had picked up, there were 2 books actually I picked up, and both I thought were terrific. I mean, I used to come to Bombay every, fortnight or so. And, there's Churchgate used to have these Raddi, all these Raddiwalas, and they used to have all these second-hand books and all that. Now it's all gone, but, so I picked up 2 books, and, both are terrific. One was Ira Levin's Kiss Before Dying, which I wrote a script. I wanted to make it, and then I got to know that it was being made in Hindi already. Because somebody in US had recently made a film, and that recent film was being remade here. So and so on. That was Bazigar, by the way. The film which Kiss Before Dying is based on a lovely novel by Ira Levin, and it's worth reading. It's still got one of the best twists. Even though you've seen Bazigar, you will not know that.
Speaking of which, I did want to ask you, there's a long list of almost films with you. I actually had a list written down of these films that you almost made, but for whatever reason fell through. At one point, you were looking at Q&A, which became Slumdog Millionaire. Yeah. There are other books. There was a sci-fi romance at some point that came up.
Yeah. That's Happy Birthday.
That's do you have a favorite almost film? Something that almost happened?
Well, I mean, all of them actually. Q&A I thought was Amar Akbar Antri and For Today kind of a thing. So I tried my best to get the rights, but Vikas Swarup had already sold it. It was already sort of pre-sold along with the publication of the book. So then he said, after the film was made, then let's see. I said, maybe who's bought it? He said, the publishers have got it. Then after 2 years, he called me and said, Danny Boyle's got it. I said, okay, bye-bye, see you. Then I bought the next book. I mean, well, not next, the next book called Accidental Apprentice, which I said, okay, before anybody let me book it. So I got the rights for 2 years, but I couldn't crack it. So I had to leave it. I mean, I had to let the option go. So
even Mafia Queens in Mumbai,
Sorry? Mafia Queens in Mumbai. By the time I'd gone, Hussain, they had sold bits and pieces of the book already. No, I didn't. I was not involved in that.
Is it the sci-fi romance still something you ever want to come back to?
See, that was a story which I loved, but then there was again Danny Boyle comes into the strangely.
Buzzkill he is. I've always thought that. He's a buzzkill. No,
he did a film called Yesterday, which is vaguely, there are some similar aspects to that, but I can still do it, but I have to crack it in a different sense, So, but I still, my core idea is still intact, but I have to crack it.
Next time, just check what he's making next, just to safeguard your time. I did want to ask, where do you find these books? Because I've always wondered this, because, you always hear about filmmakers finding these sort of, in your case, French books from the 60s. And where do are you an avid reader? Where are you coming across these? Speaking on behalf of the Coffee with Karan Big Boss audience, I'm always wondering, are you just reading a lot? Where are you finding this?
I mean, we all we read a lot. I mean, right from childhood, that was the sort of reading a lot was there. Nowadays, I buy more books than I read. But earlier, I used to read a lot. And I used to actually, visit all these second-hand bookstores, and that is really the place to find odd treasures. And now, of course, there's so much available online you can read about and find out. Of course, now the books that are there, all the new books are already usually pre-sold, and by the time you like, I mean, since you're asking about books, I wanted to do. I had read a book called Blood Work, and that I said, well, let me check out who's got the rights for this. Then I realized Clint Eastwood has bought it. I said, okay, not bad. Danny Boyle, Clint Eastwood, I'm in good company.
You're in good company. So then do you get mobbed by authors more than the average filmmaker, where authors just think, this is my guy, he will like...
Sorry.
Do you get mobbed by authors more than other filmmakers, do you think?
Authors? No, I get mobbed by writers, but not authors. Some writers, some are alleged writers.
Something you said at another masterclass you did recently with Satyanshu, you talked about how for you, when you're starting a new project, the plot is the core. You'll always start with plot. You'll always, nail the beats of the entire film before you start looking at scenes and going on a deeper level.
No, I used to think like that, but I mean, slowly, actually, in that masterclass, what I had said was, initially I was very plot kind of thing. Then I had met Kundan Shah, who had said that wonderful thing, which I've tattooed in my brain. He said, ki, plots have no life, and life has usually no plot. So you have to really make it more about life and characters and so on. So now, I mean, when you see, for example, a film like Badlapur, it's more about the people. Of course, there is the beginning, middle, end. There are plot points and all that. But it's finally the character which really survives, So if people like Johnny Gadar, is it because of the plot or is it because of something else? I don't know. It's a combination of things. Like Taxi Driver is not a plot story, but you know the character, you still connect with him and so on. So,
that's what sticks with you.
Yeah.
But if I was a fly on the wall, what does that process look like of you finding a character? If you go to a short film, you found a book, you found an idea, a premise, a scenario that excites you, and then you're sort of building on that. What is your process of finding characters? And how much of it is all on paper? Are you ever building them with the actors at that stage?
No, I think for each story I've done, there must be at least 100 which I've said no to. So it is not like, you get it so easily. And then, of course, once you get it, then, of course, actors contribute a lot. I mean, the co-writers first, then the actors, then once you have a small team and they're making the film, then everyone is a part of the writing process. Even my cameramans have given me great dialogues, and I ask them, and they give me sometimes. So Arun Mehta's give me 2 or 3 superb lines in Ikkis. So,
just coming to Agent Vinod, you've talked a lot about how, correct me if I'm wrong, it was sort of where that film went wrong was the Mission Impossible approach, where you think of really fun, cool sequences and then try and reverse engineer the film. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's because that was the one time where sometimes you have a one line, sometimes you have a character, sometimes you have a short story. Sometimes here we had only a title, and the title and the proviso that we will not remake that film. We'll use this title and make our own film. So I sort of at that time thought ki it's not the story that's important, but the individual scenes that are that together make it work, which is what the template for the Bond film and all. But I didn't have the Bond budget, but more than budget, I didn't have the Bond expertise to handle a film like that, where you just create those things. So then you need the plot the story to anchor it. So
you were in many ways ahead of the times, because just after that, flashy spies became all the hype, and then it became...
Well, today, Agent Vinod is on YouTube, and a lot of people send very charitable, generous, good comments about it. Too little, too late, maybe, but chalega.
And you said that when you were working on that, you did discuss what it would look like if that was a multi-film franchise. Did you have sort of stories in mind?
No. At that time, there was this whole desire and ambition. Me and Saib used to have a drink and talk about, So he said, I'll do 3 or 4 of these. After that, we'll hand over the baton to somebody else. And I said, yeah, for the premiere, we should have it. We should call Frederick Fawcett for the premiere. So you can have a lot of fun.
Call Danny Boyle for the premiere.
Yeah.
And then with Badlapur, firstly, I'll just ask you the big question first. The rumors of the sequel there, is that, I have to ask, is that something that, is there any truth to that? Is that something you're
No, there is truth to the fact that there is a sequel everybody is desirous of making. It is just that, my whole condition is Badlapur 1 is a film it is complete. It was never thought of as a sequel type of movie. So part two of the same story should not ruin part one, So, so that shouldn't happen. So, or you can do a spiritual, a sequel in spirit, in which case it has to be a terrific story which works with the same sort of thematic intensity or value which the first one had. It cannot be just another revenge story.
Speaking of revenge story, I read a lot of the interviews you gave around that time, and you're talking about how a lot of the response from the audience, a lot of people were put off at how dark it was. How dark that went. And I was thinking, you realize that character in that story in 2026, he's a hero.
Yeah.
There is revenge, that those themes, he has beards and bicep, which is all you need nowadays. It goes that far. It's very, violence is very, very uncomfortable and glorified. So that today would be a very different film.
I agree with you. And it's quite strange how in 10 years it's all changed. Because I remember somebody even that time, once the film got over, they had told me it's a good film, but I thought in the end he'll go and kill that guy's mother. I said, well, why would you think that? That means my story has not worked on him at all. So,
do you ever think about that? Do you ever think about what would happen if those films released today, like how they'd be received?
I don't think about that, but I mean they're all available, and I do occasionally visit Letterboxd to get an idea of what is somebody. There's still somebody is watching it.
You've also talked a lot about how important endings are for you. Maybe it's for the genre, and how much time and energy goes into that. And your films have very, very different endings. Is there one which was the toughest ending to crack?
Well, endings are. I mean, you have to get it right, so it's tough. But each one had. I can talk about each ending. I wouldn't say which was toughest because each, like for example, Andhadhun, I knew it had to end in a certain question mark for the audience, but I didn't know exactly how would I reach this question mark. But I didn't want the fact. There were two things we were very clear about. If in the end of the film he's actually a blind guy, you'll see, poor chap, he did something for a lark and he suffered too much for whatever happened. And if we can see, then what the hell? I mean, this guy can do all this and get away with it. It doesn't make sense. So we had decided that we'll keep it strangely, tantalizingly ambiguous. That was the idea. But how to get there, we didn't know. But so that took us time. Badlapur, actually, my producer got worried because it was an abrupt, just like a midpoint. It was not an end also. And then suddenly the film stops. Okay, go home. But that's the way it should have ended according to me. But then we ruined it by putting a music video in the end. So I tell, whenever people are watching, I say, when the music video comes, please stop and don't watch it.
That film also was weirdly ahead of its time because it had that banger opening. It's that Netflix algorithm of open with a bang. And if there's any film that really opens with that, it's that. Where sort of you immediately hooks you, don't miss the beginning.
Yeah. No, the don't miss the beginning was there because I couldn't get the title Badlapur. So they wanted me to add something. So I could have added Badlapur, the revenge or something like that, which just sounds quite silly. So then I said, people shouldn't miss the beginning, so why not? So if you're playing dumb charade, it's a great way to win. Because nobody will guess. It's called Don't Miss the Beginning.
No, I just found it very funny because, PVR has conditioned all of us to be the worst audiences. So the film came with instructions, which clearly people needed. And we'll come back to Merry Christmas because I wanted to end the conversation there to introduce the film. With Ikkis, I found it very interesting that you said, to Satyanshu, you said that for you, if the second part of that film, the father's journey, didn't happen, it wouldn't have really excited you just to talk about this sort of man sacrifice, which I thought was very interesting because that is that's a typical Hindi cinema biopic, right? Just sort of this insane soldier's achievements and everything he did, the bravery. So why was that so important to you? Why without that part, why was the story less exciting to you?
No, if I was doing just the Arun story, then I would have had to he became a sort of a heroic figure in the last 1 hour of his life, and he didn't even know. He died before he even knew he's the hero and he's going to be celebrated or been an inspiration for people so many years, for army boys, so many decades later. So if that was the thing, then that whole film, that is the bulk of the film, should have been that last battle, which means it's like some films have that, where the battle becomes the main thing, So, but then am I the right guy to do it? There'll be so many better people who'll enjoy it more, So for me, the other story gave it a perfect balance.
A lot of people have, as I was telling you earlier, that film has brought so many of us hope. There's always that one film every year that really just gives you hope. And that was that for this year, and I can say that confidently, it's only March. But I found it so interesting, so many people were saying that that's an anti-war film. For me, it's also kind of an anti-biopic because you really humanized him. It felt like we're in the presence of a person who went on to do this incredible, brave thing. Whereas that's not the biopic language, right? Like it's always about sort of glorifying this person right from their first steps. And I thought it was very interesting that it really felt like a very human story, which is not what this genre tends to be. It tends to be very much sort of.
Right. Yeah, but the biopic is I mean, yeah, you can. I mean, my idea was not to make a Amar Chitra Kada version of Arun's story. So it was something more. I wanted to, and I mean, I've seen after I began working on this film, I saw many good, really good war films from all over the world, and there's so much one can say with a certain film, a certain subject. So I got into that.
We don't have to get into specifics of the stupidity around the conversation around the film, but is that ever frustrating that you went ahead and you put all your time into a story that you truly believed in, that was from the heart, and then for various factors and conversation that is not in your control, which I would probably say is nothing to do with anyone who's actually watched the film. It's just stuff that, it doesn't sort of get the audience it deserves.
See, when a film doesn't work, you feel bad. But then you think of so many great filmmakers, I mean, and great films which have not worked. And what did ex Raj Kapoor feel after Mere Naam Joker tanked on the second day? I remember when I was a kid, my parents had taken me to the movie and it was so empty. Me and my brother used to play catch and cook in the hall. So, I mean, that also happens. So, I mean, sometimes films work, sometimes they don't. So one has to take it straight because, like I said, Ramu's advice comes in useful that time. What did I enjoy more? And there are enough people who liked it. So
very much so.
Yeah.
And all very loud voices. For anyone who hasn't watched it, it's on Amazon Prime Video. You just coming to Merry Christmas. You said I'm going to swear. You said Badlapur is a bit of a fuck you film for you because it was after Agent Vinod, and you really wanted to go back to what excited you, the kind of to be your voice. So what was the thought going into Merry Christmas? Because tonally, pace-wise, it's very, very different to what a lot of people expected from you at that time.
Yeah. So actually, when Andhadhun happened, after Andhadhun, I remember when Ramu, again, I'm talking about, when Ramu made Satya, after Satya was doing, we loved it in Bombay, it was doing well in Bombay, and where is Ramu? He's disappeared. Then I came to know he's shooting something in Panvel and he's shooting Corn. In 3 weeks, he came back saying, I shot that film also. I said, wow. So Merry Christmas was actually meant to be a very low budget film to be done in a certain manner. It was like, okay, this is over. Now let's do another kind of for me, it was interesting. Okay, since I've done that, let me do a love story. Let me push the envelope a little bit and see, okay, can I make a love story in the garb of a thriller and so on. And there was also that thing of I wanted a very actors who have just not worked with each other. And by chance, I met Vijay Sethupathi, and I just enjoyed chatting with him, interacting with him. Then I asked him, do you know Hindi? He said, मैं 3 साल दुबई में रहा था, Then I realized after some time that that's the only Hindi he knows properly. मैं 3 साल दुबई में रहता था. That was the only line he could say, don't go.
It's worked for him for multiple Hindi projects.
So I said, अच्छा, इतना तो he's called me. But after that, okay, it's not that bad. It just sounds better, gets a laugh. So
sort of works for the character also.
Yeah.
And how close was that to the story from the book?
Well, okay. Now, Merry Christmas, again, I came across the book because one of my colleagues, one of the co-writers of Andhadhun, Yogesh, he said, hey, this book has come, this writer is being published and translated in English and so on. So I read 3-4 of the books, and this one, though, I just fell in love with the book. And I remember it's a novel actually. Both of these, they're not big fat books. They're like 120 pages kind of a thing. So I loved the story and I said, wow. And again, getting rights from another country is not easy. It takes 3-4 years it takes to get the thing. Initially, they said no and so on. So, but I loved the story, and I thought if I don't get rights, is there any way I can still extract the essence of the story and make it? And it was possible, but we couldn't crack it. And luckily, after some time, we got the rights also. So, but it's a story that I found it very moving. It's a very film story. There's not realism, it's just, so I wanted it, and it was set in Christmas time. I thought it's like a fairy tale kind of a thing, a grim fairy tale. That was my initial subtitle, GRIM, not double M, so that. And yeah, so, but when I read the thing, then I came to know there's already a French film made on that same film, and the French film had been scripted by the author of the book. So I said, we saw the film, and I said, no point repeating the same thing. So we wanted to change things as much as we can. Then again, one of my friends is Kumar Raja, who's the director of Super Deluxe. So I told him, I said, about the film, and he had some ideas. And I said, should I make it a Hindi, Tamil, make it with two different endings, and all kinds of things we tried. But initially, I stuck to one story. But the story, what you read in the book, is not exactly the same story, but it's a little different. What we have done with it is different from what the book is and what this film is. This film, what you're going to see, is actually a closer adaptation of the novel. But even this has got terrific changes. I mean, some changes. So I don't know how many of you have seen Merry Christmas.
Who hasn't? Yeah.
Everyone, EGAT, almost. So I don't want to spoil it for you all. So there are, so you will know a few things, but it's not exactly the same. So Merry Christmas and this are quite poles apart.
Is it cool as a filmmaker to watch another filmmaker's take on the same material to see what they've done with it?
I read somewhere that Tarantino saw this Kante and loved it. So I don't know whether that's true or not. But
I can think of who might have invented that. But no, I forgot I was going to ask about Merry Christmas. We will try and squeeze in some time at the end for a few questions. I don't know how much we'll manage. You talked about how, when you made Merry Christmas, which was obviously very recent, you were well aware that it goes against this conventional wisdom of all of our attention spans decreasing. It has that sort of what people keep saying is a slow burn. How much do you think about that? How much do you think about what people are saying the audience wants today? And then how much are you sort of...
No, actually, it's quite interesting because when I began the film, when I began Merry Christmas, I told my producer, Ramesh Sarani was the producer, and along with Matchbox, I said, I'm going to make a 90-minute film and there's going to be no interval. So he said, 90 minutes without interval is very difficult. Make it 100 minutes. I said, no, I'll make it 80 minutes if you want. But I want no interval because the story has to go at a go. Then he didn't, he said, okay, let's see and all that. Then as I began writing it, I said, it's 2 hours, something. So we'll have an interval. He was very happy with that. So the film, I forgot your question, but the film changed while writing it,
But I'm saying both when you were working on it and on hindsight, this whole thing of audience today, attention spans.
Okay, the slow burn. But I'll tell you what. When Andhadhun, see, I have a habit of whenever the film is sort of a rough cut, whatever is cut already, I call a few people and show it. In Andhadhun also, everybody said, you're waiting for 18 minutes. No, it was only 23 minutes before the first sort of crime things happens in the movie. And 23, 26, I forgot. It should happen in the first 5 minutes. It was 5-6 years back, that film, but even then they were saying it's slow and all that. So there's no way of knowing it. And I don't know, this whole pacing thing is the one beautiful thing which everyone feedback, cut it by 20 minutes or cut it by 7 minutes. How do they know?
That's how they want to sound smart.
Yeah. So no, I was very aware that it's a slow burn. So I remember telling in interviews it's a slow burn. Slow burn, I think, was suddenly everybody's slow burn. And slow cooking and all that. I don't know. So those who like it, but I can understand people getting restless, and I can understand that, but I want to take a chance. If by chance I manage to make this work box office wise, that will be great. So,
you can break that.
Yeah, and a lot of people told me they're very happy that I made a slow film. Yeah. A lot of filmmakers, at least.
I love how the definition of slow film is changing. It's just that, no, there's still crime, it just takes 20 minutes. Like, that's a slow film.
Yeah.
But what about, if you're working on the next film, what about whatever the next conventional wisdom is? If a producer or somebody tells you that, no, this is what's working, these are the kinds of things audience is responding to, do you ever feel like you need to bake that in, or are you just trying to do a film that would excite you?
I think the latter, because there's a beautiful line by William Goldman, and nobody knows anything. It's like that. So we don't know. We don't know what's going to work, what's not going to work. When Dhurandhar came out, it was like 4 hours, 3 hours. Who's going to watch? And the same guys are now paying $2,000 a ticket. And great. So
no comment. We will. I want to live. No, it's fine. We will open up for a couple of questions, and I have a couple more. And if somebody can give me a time check, you know what? Yeah. Start. Sorry. Yes, yeah. We can take 1 or 2. Do we have mics, or are we just shouting? Oh, yeah,
shout.
Yeah. So big fan, absolutely. I just want to know, with the new era of filmmaking that's coming in, with the technology and AI that has been incorporated, does that give you like a advantage or a disadvantage as a filmmaker? What is your take on the new technology and how game are you for it?
Well, this is a long, elaborate answer, but in short, I can just say, my co-writer today sent me, Chat GPT has given me a couple of good options for Badlapur to have to read it. I'm terrified, but so I don't know. Yeah. I mean, you have to take some things that will be useful, some things that will not be useful, and certainly it can't replace our imperfections. That is the best part.
But why I was asking you this question is that when you pitch a story, and this is for all the young filmmakers, a lot of producers, a lot of studios are actually going and giving it to an AI-generated form, whether this will work at the box office or not. So do you think that's the future? I mean, what do you think? How are we going to go about it?
No, I don't know about this going to AI and asking. It's like all backs used to be asked. Like, even my scripts have been given to people. Okay, read the script and see whether this work or not. I don't know how they compute all this, but I think there are a lot of people who have to justify their jobs.
Do you want to choose people? So I don't. Do you want to choose?
No, I mean, I'm fine.
Yeah, should we go there?
Hello, sir. So first of all, huge fan of your craft and I absolutely love Badlapur. So my question to you specifically is like when you're writing a film like Badlapur or any film, and even when you are like directing it. So at any point, like when you start the shooting of it or anything, do you feel in the midway like you kind of like you want to add this element, that element, but ultimately at the end of the day that you feel like you're slightly drifting away from it? And do you like take the second option or you keep it to original? Like what goes through your mind like?
No, I mean, some stories do change while we are making it for good reasons only, hopefully. Like I said, even Merry Christmas, when I began writing it, it began as a 90-minute no-interval thriller, very fast-paced. But while writing it, we discovered that it's more fun if I stick to that's the plot. It's more fun if I stick to if I sort of explore the characters and so it suddenly became a different film, in its own way. So that will change on the way. But of course, I mean, this is all in the writing process. It's not that we began shooting and in midway we thought, but even that sometimes happens. You begin shooting and you realize we don't need something or you need something more here. That happens.
Should we try taking one from the back if anyone has? Yeah, we have one now. Yeah, the mic is just coming to you. Oh, okay.
Hi, sir.
Hi.
Sir, like generally, if you watch films, the staging of any scene really like it feels like you're inspired from Alfred Hitchcock. So, what do you feel like? What aspects of Alfred Hitchcock's craft should today's filmmakers copy more?
Your question is just don't copy anything. Just watch the films. Watch the films. Not only Hitchcock. There are so many people now. There are so many. Hitchcock was. His last film was in the late 70s. So it's like 50 years back. So after that, so many people have been inspired by him. So like when I was in the film institute, so Hitchcock used to be sort of Hitchcock. Like commercial Hollywood kind of a thing. And I used to feel that everybody used to like the European filmmakers, but Hitchcock was given slightly sort of a second level treatment. Then by chance I read an interview with Spielberg, who in one of the things he said, anyone who says he's not influenced by Hitchcock is clean out of his mind. So I liked that. I said, okay.
Wasn't one of your first ever jobs translating Hitchcock films into Hindi for some producer?
Not Hindi films. My first film as an assistant was Edbar, which was a remake of Dial for Murder, which is one of my favorite Hitchcock films. In fact, I should tell Ashish that to get the 3D version of Dial for Murder, that will be great for with the specs, because it's like almost like entirely set in a house. So it's like the film in 3D would be. I have not seen the 3D version. Okay.
Should we try getting one from the back? Sorry, let's just get one question from the back. Okay, I guess whoever fights with the microphone.
Hello, sir. My name is Prateek.
Where are you?
Hello, sir. My name is Prateek. And according to you, what will be the future of Indian cinema as AI is rising? So, according to
We not just get that question.
Yeah,
Okay.
Again, these are like good or bad. I can't say all that. They are not short answers.
Ask ChatGPT, you can get back to us.
Okay. And any update on your upcoming projects?
No, I'm working on 2 or 3 projects, and hopefully in another 3-4 months I'll be sure which one I'm doing. So
Okay.
yeah, you can just say it loud. There's a mic there. Okay, I thought the mic was.
So, good afternoon, first of all. I really love your work. So, what advice would you like to give an aspiring screenwriter? Should a screenwriter create a film based on what they think will be successful, or based on, or as an audience member, or as the perspective from an audience member?
Only right to satisfy yourself. No, that's the main thing. How will you know what I will like? I will not know what you like exactly, but I'll know, at least I don't know what I like, and hopefully you will like it. So you just stick to your heart and your content.
So, one more question. So, do you think has the theater audience changed such that they only see mass cinema, leaving the experimental films only to OTT platforms?
We have to prove that wrong, yeah.
Actually, yeah, that has been happening, and we have to really prove that wrong. I think we should bring back experimental cinema back to the theaters.
You're also wrong to believe that experimental films go to OTT platforms anymore. But
Not experimental. I think he meant.
After COVID, I think that
was true a few years ago, but now even there's not really much. Should we take one from the back there, please?
Hi, sir. Less of a question and more of a suggestion. You should so you should try to make an anthology film like Wild Tales, because there's no other director in the country who can who's master of twists and turns. So and with the current type of films, an anthology film will work.
No, I love Wild Tales, but and there are a lot of filmmakers. They don't make there's a lot of good work happening in Malayalam cinema, Tamil cinema, Marathi cinema. So there are a lot of people. And Wild Tales is wonderful, yeah. But to get those stories and
Also, when's the last
I'll
time
try.
an audience went to the theater to watch an anthology film? I mean, that's unlikely, but it's a cool idea. Can we take one more question? Yeah, should we do last one? Do you want to choose?
I don't.
No pressure. Okay, he has the mic. Yeah.
Hi, sir. Big fan. There's an element, I mean, you could just clear up my doubt maybe, that there's an element of that meta quality in your film, right? The elements of filmmaking are somehow visible in your films, like production design or something, like how they, without giving any spoilers to anyone who hasn't seen Merry Christmas, like how they restage the whole apartment and everything, right? So there's that element of production design, even in Andhadhun, or how, the whole concept of him, of what the audience knows and what the characters don't know, is the whole element of irony and production design is.
I mean,
much better.
I don't know how to answer that. Yeah, they will. You're right, probably. I don't know. Yeah.
No, I mean, it's a meta quality, like where the craft is sort of made visible within the story realm.
I think, yeah, because I
Like, sorry to interrupt, but like if Akash from Andhadhun, he's an actor basically, right? Because he's playing a part of someone maybe who he's not.
No, that quality is there. The Andhadhun is full of, see, all those things. I mean, when you start writing a story, you don't think about, मैं इसको meta बनाऊंगा, ऐसा करूंगा, ऐसा. Those things come, on the way, The fact that in Andhadhun, if you see the original short film on which it was based,
Piano tune.
there's a man there, there's a man there who's dead. Now, the dead man could be a businessman, but the fact that I made him an actor, hence I could use Anil Dhawan's songs, hence I could make his wife someone who's an aspiring actress. So look at all the sort of clues and leads it gives me, just because of one decision to make him an actor. He could have been a businessman in Pune, he could have been a doctor, for all you know.
We will unfortunately have to end it there. I really wish we could have more time to pick your brain and your films. But thank you for the perspective. Thank you for the joy at the movies. And in 2026, based on Ikkis, thank you for the hope. And I really hope Danny Boyle sticks to his lane.
Thank you. And enjoy the film. It's a very interesting film. And for those who have seen Merry Christmas, there will still be a lot of surprises. So
Thank you.
have fun.